The Israelites gathered at Shiloh. It was a momentous occasion, a time when the entire community came together in unity and purpose. The air was filled with excitement and a sense of destiny as families, tribes, and leaders converged on this sacred site. It was a time of celebration and anticipation. The people were joyful, their hearts filled with hope and gratitude. They sang songs of praise, danced in the streets, and shared stories of their journey. The atmosphere was electric, charged with the energy of a people who had overcome great trials. The tabernacle, the dwelling place of God, was set up there. This sacred tent, a symbol of God's presence among them, stood as a testament to their faith and perseverance. It was here that they would seek divine guidance and offer their thanks for the blessings they had received. This marked a significant moment in their journey. After years of wandering in the wilderness, they had finally reached a place of rest and promise. It was a milestone that signified not just physical arrival, but spiritual fulfillment as well. They had crossed the Jordan River and conquered Jericho. These were monumental achievements, acts of faith and courage that demonstrated their unwavering trust in God's promises. Each step they took was a testament to their resilience and determination. Now, it was time to divide the Promised Land. This was a task of great importance, one that required wisdom and fairness. The land was to be distributed among the tribes, each receiving their inheritance as promised by God. It was a moment of both joy and responsibility. Joshua, their leader, stood before them. He was a figure of strength and integrity, a man chosen by God to lead his people. His presence commanded respect and inspired confidence among the Israelites. He was a man of faith and courage. Joshua's unwavering belief in God's promises had guided him through countless challenges. His leadership was marked by a deep sense of duty and a commitment to the well-being of his people. He had led them through battles and challenges. From the walls of Jericho to the fields of Ai, Joshua had proven himself as a capable and fearless leader. His strategic mind and unshakable faith had brought them victory time and again. Now he would oversee the distribution of the land. This was a task that required not just leadership but wisdom and discernment. Joshua understood the significance of this moment and approached it with the gravity it deserved. This was a sacred task, guided by God's commands. The distribution of the land was not just a logistical exercise, but a divine mandate. It was a process that required prayer, reflection, and a deep sense of reverence for God's will. The Israelites knew that their future depended on the decisions made at Shiloh, and they approached the task with humility and faith. 7 tribes had not yet received their inheritance. These tribes were still waiting for their promised land, a land that had been sworn to their ancestors by God himself. The anticipation and uncertainty weighed heavily on them. These were Benjamin, Simeon, Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and Dan. Joshua, their leader, addressed these tribes with a sense of urgency and purpose. He knew the importance of fulfilling God's promise and the need to settle the land. He reminded them of God's promise, a promise that had been passed down through generations. This was not just a piece of land, it was a divine inheritance, a fulfillment of a sacred covenant. He had sworn to give this land to their ancestors, a land flowing with milk and honey, a place where they could thrive and prosper. The time had come for them to take action and claim what was rightfully theirs. Now it was time for them to claim their inheritance. The tribes needed to move forward with determination and faith, knowing that their efforts would lead to the fulfillment of God's promise. Joshua instructed them to choose men from each tribe, men who were wise and capable, who could undertake the important task ahead. These chosen men would play a crucial role in the next steps. These men would survey the land, meticulously examining its features, boundaries, and resources. Their task was not just to measure the land, but to understand its potential and value. They would carefully map its boundaries and resources, ensuring that every detail was recorded accurately. This was a meticulous process that required precision and dedication. Then, they would return to Shiloh with a detailed report. This report would be comprehensive, covering every aspect of the land they had surveyed. It would be a crucial document for the next phase. This report would be used to divide the land fairly and justly. The leaders would gather, study the report, and make decisions that would ensure each tribe received their rightful inheritance. This was a momentous task, one that required wisdom, fairness, and a deep sense of responsibility. The division of the land would mark the beginning of a new chapter for the tribes of Israel, a chapter filled with hope, promise and the fulfillment of God's covenant. The 7 tribes selected their representatives. These men were leaders known for their wisdom and integrity. They understood the importance of their task. They were not just dividing land. They were participating in God's plan. The men set out equipped with tools and supplies. They traveled throughout the land, carefully observing its features. They noted mountains and valleys, rivers and springs, forests and plains. They also identified the inhabitants of each region. The land, excluding the territories of Judah and Joseph, was divided into 7 portions. This division was a significant event in the history of ancient Israel, marking the fulfillment of a promise made to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Each portion represented a unique part of the promised land. The diversity of the land was remarkable, with each region offering different resources and opportunities for the tribes. Some were rich in farmland, providing fertile soil for crops and sustenance for the people. These areas were crucial for the agricultural development of the tribes. Others were abundant in pastures, ideal for grazing animals and supporting livestock. These regions played a vital role in the economy and daily life of the tribes. Additionally, some portions had access to important trade routes, which facilitated commerce and interaction with neighboring regions. The division was not random. It was a carefully planned process, overseen by wise and experienced leaders who understood the needs and strengths of each tribe. The allocation was based on the size of each tribe and its specific needs. Larger tribes received more extensive territories, while smaller tribes were given portions that suited their numbers and capabilities. The men took great care to ensure a fair and equitable distribution. They meticulously marked the boundaries, considering the natural features of the land and the existing settlements. They wanted to prevent disputes and ensure that each tribe had what it needed to thrive. This careful planning and consideration helped maintain peace and harmony among the tribes, allowing them to coexist and prosper in their new homeland. The division of the land into 7 portions was more than just a practical necessity. It was a symbol of unity and shared destiny. Each tribe, while distinct in its own right, was part of a larger community bound by common heritage and faith. The tribes often came together for festivals, trade, and mutual support, reinforcing their bonds and ensuring that the legacy of their ancestors continued to thrive in the Promised Land. As the sun set over the diverse and bountiful land, the tribes of Israel looked forward to a future filled with promise and potential, united in their shared history and their hopes for generations to come. The Levites were not included in this division. They were the priestly tribe, set apart for God's service. They did not receive a land inheritance like the other tribes. Instead, they were given cities scattered throughout the territories of the other tribes. This arrangement served 2 purposes. First, it ensured that the Levites could minister to all the Israelites. Second, it symbolized the dependence of all the tribes on God. The Levites were a constant reminder of God's presence and his covenant with his people. After weeks of exploration, the men returned to Shiloh. They presented their detailed reports to Joshua. They described the land, its boundaries, and its resources. They also presented a map, clearly marking the proposed divisions. Joshua carefully reviewed their findings. He consulted with the elders and leaders of the tribes. He ensured that the proposed divisions were fair and equitable. Once everyone agreed, the divisions were finalized. The tribe of Benjamin, Jacob's youngest son, received its inheritance. Their territory was located between the territories of Judah and Ephraim. It included important cities like Jericho, Bethel, and Gibeon. Benjamin's land was strategically important. It controlled key roads and access to the Jordan River. This placed them at the heart of the nation, both geographically and politically. With the distribution of land complete, each tribe had its own territory. This was a significant moment for the Israelites. They had wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Now they had a place to call home. This land was not just a physical inheritance. It was a symbol of God's faithfulness to his promises. He had promised this land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now their descendants were finally taking possession of it. The division of the land was not just a logistical exercise, it was an act of obedience to God's commands. He had instructed them to divide the land and settle in it. By doing so, they were demonstrating their faith and trust in Him. Obedience to God always brings blessings. The Israelites were about to experience this firsthand. As they settled in the land and began to cultivate it, they would enjoy its bounty. They would build homes, raise families, and establish a nation. The events described in Joshua 18 are a powerful reminder of God's faithfulness and the importance of obedience. The Israelites had to trust God's plan even when they didn't fully understand it. They had to be willing to follow His instructions, even when it meant facing challenges. Their story is an inspiration to us today. We too face challenges and uncertainties, but we can trust in God's promises. He is faithful and He will never leave us nor forsake us. The division of the land was not the end of the Israelites' journey. It was a new beginning. They still faced challenges ahead. They would have to defend their land from enemies. They would have to learn to live together as a nation. But they faced these challenges with the assurance of God's presence. They had seen His power and faithfulness. They knew that He would be with them, just as He had been with their ancestors.